This episode is brought to you by the Playbase Autism and Behavioral Support. If you're looking for support for an early intervention for your child, please check out the Playbase at Instagram and Facebook in multiple locations in Canada and the United States. All right, dude.
It's funny that you said that right before we started recording about how you're reaching out to everyone, no matter who. You know, you got a cool story. Let's talk.
I don't have a filter.
No, I think it's great.
It's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
I think it's more of a blessing.
You think?
I think so, because I think it allows you to reach for different goals or reach new heights that you probably wouldn't achieve if you had such a filter.
I'll tell you, the answer to that is I agree with that, but it also depends the environment you surround yourself with. So like you got put into context. And now that I am like a 1 year removed from being a, Thornhiller / Canadian / Torontonian, and I'm in Florida, I find it in that sort of environment, it's way more conducive towards somebody who's, like me. And I'm not, people will say I'm an extrovert, but I think I'm introverted in many ways.
Okay.
Someone like you would be like LA bound because you have a creative spirit, you have a creative bone, you're working on your podcast. By the way,
which
Pepe,
you're also working on.
Pepe, thank you for being a Can't Shovel Hurricanes Canadian edition.
God.
Which means we're going to have to be careful about what we say.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be tempered. We're not
correct.
No, we won't be any of that shit.
Okay.
At all.
All right.
At all. You were just talking about, so I was saying my bucket list thing is to try stand up.
Yes.
I was literally doing it, telling my sister-in-law on the drive down here that I want to do stand up. And you said you just did it. What was it like?
So this is interesting because before I say it, I'm also curious. Not that this is, me taking over the podcast. I'm just so curious.
Do not prime anything. Okay. Ask and talk, or I'll shut this thing off.
Fucking keep it rolling. I'm curious. What made you decide? You know what? Yeah, like that is what I want. Because I feel like that's something that someone decides a while. It takes a while for someone to be like, yeah, you know what? Like I do want to go on a stage.
All right.
Because a lot of people wouldn't.
I have this weird, characteristic about me. And it goes back since I was a little kid. So I immigrated to Canada. And when I was a kid, I used to do all kinds of plays and improvs and shows. And I was always cast into a lead thing without even trying. Even when I came here and I couldn't even speak a lick of English, quickly I was into all kinds of things. I love my wife the same way. I love to host people. I like to have people over. I like to feed people. I think it makes them happy. And I also like to make people laugh.
Yes.
And my default, I swear, I shit you not, before this podcast and before I was driving down here, I was at a funeral. And it's a great buddy of mine from university. And instinctively, when I come down into a place that's so heavy, I laugh, nervously. And what I want to do is I want to make people laugh. I want to say inappropriate shit to cut the tension.
Me too.
So that's my go-to. So, in some ways, if I can get on the stage and make people laugh, I get this weird, dopamine hit that I made other people laugh. So I'm obviously they like me. So I guess I'm searching for acceptance. Holy shit, this is cheaper than therapy.
Yeah.
So now we realize why I'm
really
so fucked up.
Eh?
Thank you. You just saved me about $250 this week.
Jesus Christ, you're welcome. I take e-transfer, by the way. So I think it's really amazing because I think it takes, even before getting on the stage, and I think sometimes you honestly just need a little bit of that extra push from someone. And I got that randomly from someone that I met a couple of weeks ago. I want to shout him out. His name is Sammy. And I put this on my Instagram story, and I sort of was like, I had this realization where I was like, you know what? This social media shit, people are very, what's the best way to put this? People care way too much. And I think people think that it's this whole ordeal and it's your whole life, it's my digital presence and everyone's going to see me and judge me and everyone cares so much. And I just don't really think like that. I have a part of my brain that agrees, a lot of people are seeing it, but I don't see it in the same way as like I have friends who are like, I'm going to revamp my Instagram profile. Or I remember once my friend told me in high school, I want my Instagram profile to look exactly like this guy's, this blonde guy who, who's looking cool on a surfboard and shit. And people model their digital profile or their digital presence based off of what maybe they perceive other people's to be at a superior level or stage. And I don't agree with that. I think it's just another way to express yourself. And I had this realization randomly. My mind bounces everywhere. I think sometimes I'm like a little bit of a ricochet with my brain because I bounce from boom to boom to boom. And I had this realization. I was like, I had these followers on this Instagram account, and I've already sort of taken some risks. At that point, I've been posting on TikTok for a while. I grew it. And on my Instagram, I started posting these songs. I don't know a single person in my friend group or in, any extended friend group that sort of posts any comedic version of anything really on social media like that. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I, instead of limiting myself with my use of this social media platform, such as in this case, Instagram, why don't I try to use it as, I guess, a networking opportunity? So I took this video of myself, literally just standing in my office in my house. And I was like, if you have any aspirations, this is why I asked you before, I said, what sort of made you think like, yeah, like I do want to be on a stage? And I had this realization. I'm like, if I'm feeling like this, there's got to be other people that I know, or people that I know who know people, some sort of connection that also feel this way. And I want to know them. I want to meet them because I don't want to feel isolated. I don't want to, if I get in that mindset, even for a split second, that I'm like, oh, this, self, I don't know, if I'm like this isolated weirdo who's pursuing this different thing than everyone else, right? I'm surrounded by everyone who's very white collared. I want to go into business. I'm going to be going to med school. I'm going to write the LSAT, which is great. Like people pursue things like that and they want a stable career. And I do as well. Everyone wants that stability in life, but sometimes you just have to admit to yourself that maybe there is that passionate side of you that wants to pursue something. So I thought, I'm going to record this video. I'm going to edit it a little bit. It took me like 2 hours to post a 1 minute long video of me just talking to a camera. It took me 2 hours to record because
people don't realize how much work actually goes into it.
Yeah.
In real content.
No one really realizes. And it's crazy. All I did in this 1 minute long video, which I didn't even post as an actual post, I put it on my Instagram story. All I did was say, if you are in the Toronto area, so relatively close to me or accessible, and you have any sort of nagging voice ever in the back of your mind that says, you know what, I want to pursue something in entertainment. I don't care if it's acting or comedy or you have something like that. You like talking to people, something where you want to push yourself a little bit in this weird, or I wouldn't say weird, honestly. Maybe it is weird. This different sort of entertainment scene. Reach out to me. I don't bite. I won't bite. I just want to meet you. I want to know if there's anyone there who has similar interests to me. And I was so pleasantly surprised. I got people messaging me that I would have never thought about. Like people to the point where I was a teacher's assistant in university and I would teach these business labs. I had students who reached out to me like, you know what? Yeah, like I've had that. And like, it just felt so cool to I haven't made it anywhere yet, but to know that other people have, well, I think
what are you supposed to be? You say you haven't made it anywhere yet. Where are you supposed to be then, other than where you are right now?
I don't know. I think that's part of the experience, though. I mean, made it anywhere. Actually, I don't like that term, made it. I only said that because...
Okay, what does made it sound like? What does made it look like for you? What does Pepe made it?
That's a good question. You sound like my grandfather right now.
No, but I want to know because like...
I don't know.
I know what in my age, what I thought made it was when I was your age.
Right.
But
interesting.
Yeah.
I think that made it is such a shitty blanket term.
Sure.
Because once you make it, who knows if you even want it anymore? You might want something else. I don't even know. Like if you ask me to describe, if you ask me right now, I guess it's a different type of question or worded differently. But if you said in 10 years, where would you want to be? I would say I'd want to be happy, but I think...
What does happy mean?
Who the hell knows what happy means?
I can tell you my definition of happy now, but it took me through a lot of shit to find out what that sounded like too. But
I feel like it would take me that too.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that to know what happy means. And I think we aspire for happiness, and it's an unattainable goal. But like you said things so definitive, like I haven't made it anywhere yet, but I'm like, so what's made it? And you can't define that made it either yet.
Right.
So happy, like, and you go back, like I'm hearing the things that you're saying, and the only reason I I don't want to preach. I'm not an old man. I've had some life experiences. I look at somebody like you. I look at somebody like my nephew, Jesse. I look at, my other two nephews, and the thing that I tell them all the time, especially now, is the only thing you don't want to do is be 20 years ahead, which is kind of like where I'm at on age, and feel like you live with regret. So whatever it is that you want to do. And then you think the made it is usually of like what you think other people think of you. Like, did you make it? Are you good? Are you financially stable? And you use stability. Can I tell you, man, stability is so dangerous, because once you become stable, you'll get bored and you'll start looking for something else. Having financial freedom, having good, budgeting practices, good health practices. And then you'll want to do all these things that'll work out well. And then life will throw you 1,000 curveballs. You'll eventually get, married, maybe. I don't even know how to define it anymore, because I'm on Canadian soil. I'm afraid to say married to a woman or like a spouse or a partner. Right. And I don't subscribe to any of that nonsense, because I don't have any venom in my brain, in my veins. I don't care what you do to make you happy. I really, really don't care. And if whatever it is that gives you pleasure in this world, as long as you're hurting nobody else, fill your boots. Do it. Like, who am I to judge, right? But I don't need to get everyone ripping on me for saying, oh, you said married to a woman or married to a man, and those are fluid. No, they're not. Not in my world. They might be in yours. Are you happy? Good. Keep it that way.
Right.
I don't play that game, man. I need to ask you something.
Ask me.
Pepe.
Yeah.
Like you're like a good Jewish kid. Pepe, it sounds like a Mexican. Like,
it does sound like a Mexican.
Where did Pepe come from?
Pepe originated. See, the funny thing is, whenever I'm asked this question, it still catches me off guard. And this is like the most common question that I've ever heard in my entire life, obviously. And to the point where when I'm at a social gathering and someone asks me, what's your name? Or, hey, like, what's up? Who are, like, whatever. I have to introduce myself. I have a split second moment where I have to make this decision. Am I going to introduce myself as Pepe, or am I going to introduce myself as Adam? Because Pepe comes with follow-up questions, a conversation. So if it's a girl who I'm like, oh, yeah.
That was been my next question.
Yeah. If it's a nice girl, yeah. My name is Pepe. Oh, Pepe. And then we sort of get into it. And then once again, I'm caught off guard. The best icebreaker in the world. The best. If I say Adam, who the fuck cares?
Yeah, like everybody else.
The crazy thing is, they're both 4-letter words.
It's also, but you're like the first human ever, Adam and Eve.
Yeah, I know.
Adam, like, I mean, pretty lame, dude.
I could also be the first.
Stick with Pepe.
I could be the first Jewish Pepe ever, too.
What's your best pickup line?
Ooh.
Do people still do that, or do you have to slide into the DMs, or is it all Tinder-based?
It's so all...
Are pickup lines digital now? Like, you don't have to come up to a girl anymore?
Yeah, but you know what, though? There's something...
You guys are so lucky.
It's crazy, though, but there's something... you'd think so. You'd think you're lucky, but a lot of people don't have it. Sometimes it's like the craziest thing. Like, there's been so many times where even me, we always talk about it as a friend group sometimes, and it's just so funny to talk about, because we're so aware of how crazy it is. Like, to the fact that that's how it has to be, right? Like, you said pickup line, and I immediately thought like through some sort of a digital.
Right. So that's why it's so important now how good your social media profiles are.
Isn't that crazy?
Versus for me, I had to work out, I had to dress well, I had to wear good cologne, and then I had to have cash on me. Yeah. You know how much money you're saving and not buying girls drinks? Oh my God. You know how many times I got turned down?
We're not saving money from that. We're not. That's still a thing. That's still a thing.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oof. At the bars, I mean, at least at university too, yeah. People, I've had friends who, I just had a friend who told me he blew around $70. I think he was in Europe. He is in Europe, so I think it was in euros. Blew $70 on a girl and just didn't even end up talking to her after. You know, it's sort of like people
you didn't get her number?
Caught up in the moment. No,
dude. To me, that €70 translates.
Isn't that crazy?
That's guaranteed to get laid money.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you might as well.
Yeah, I hope my kids will listen to this one day. But if I'm spending $70, I'm like,
you need to consider opopportunity cost.
Oh, absolutely, opportunity and time. Like right now, I value myself at around $600 an hour. So like, if you spend an hour, that's like $700.
That's a good hour.
Yeah, that's actually taken me a while to realize that my time is way more valuable than the money I make. And I'm not saying that in like, a vague sort of foo-foo kind of way. If you are doing things that you deem a means to an end, like financial, and you have to spend 20 hours to get $1,000 or whatever, and you're not incorporating the lead up to the outcome, then you're grossly undervaluing yourself, right? Some people just look at the end. Like, so real estate's my game here. When I moved to Florida, it's still my game, but it is morphed and changed, and I'm doing things like this podcast,
which is great.
The networking, I have never in my life, and I've done every networking event you can ever imagine. If I knew what I knew about podcasts now, and also partially with my behavioral type of being able to speak to anybody, this is the best networking method that has ever existed, because it allows for people to speak authentically. It allows for you to ask them things that you're genuinely curious about. And it's a great icebreaker. And,
that's amazing.
And because it gives another person a platform to get their message out for free, right? To people that are captive and listening. You don't need everybody to be interested in you. You just need the right people to listen to you, right?
What if this was around 40? What's the equivalent of this in the 1980s? Is it a radio show?
It's a good question, man.
Because that's exclusive.
So
This is so accessible.
You know what I think, if we actually are going to dig into that, I think like someone like the pioneer of this stuff is like Howard Stern. He's been doing podcasts forever, right? But he was always around celebrities and doing other things. And, he's the king of all media.
Right.
But the podcast is like late night TV. You just didn't have a mic in front of you, right? So it's probably dates. But this, just because it's gone just audio and the accessibility through the internet and being able to consume content in your most like downtime, walking the dog, exercising, driving in the car, like we're spending so much time, and you don't have to visually look at it. You can just listen to it. That's why I found like audiobooks to be so powerful. Like driving back and forth to Florida and spending as much time as I have in a car, I have learned more from those audiobooks than I have in my 4-year commerce degree. And it doesn't match the real life stuff. But you were saying that you're going to launch your own podcast, which I hope to be a guest on one day.
Oh, I'd love to.
What's it called?
All right, so here's what it's called. And just like, well, first of all, I didn't even get into the Pepe story.
Oh, dude, yeah, finish the Pepe story.
You can't. I got to give you the background of my name, and then I'll give you the background of the podcast name. Because
I have a follow-up after.
Okay. So Pepe comes from, to put it on all simple playing field here, I made up a song when I was around 5. I've always had that.
Made up a song.
I was at summer camp, and it was a day camp. I made up a song with the intention, I would assume at the time, of just singing it to annoy people and get reactions. Sort of like what I would do now, just in terms of not, just pushing people's buttons. I love it in like a little like antagonizing way. I'm always running these bits with people. I've always had that in me. And I made up this song, and it went like, Ocho a la Pepe, Pepe a la Ocho. And I would sing it on repeat. I'd walk around, I would sing it to everyone, my counselors, my friends, people I've never seen before, the bus driver. And I think it was one of my counselors, whose name was David Chan. If by any weird reason he's listening to this podcast, David Chan, I think at the time he was also dating my aunt, or just got out of a relationship with her. Really, really weird coincidence. And he started calling me Pepe, probably with the intention of making fun of me. And it stuck like glue, like glue. So
where was this 5-year-old? And that's not even English.
5.
You were 5. Where does 5-year-old pick up these words?
Ooh, that's amazing. My mind is like a racing generator of just randomness.
Oh, dude, that's how my wife describes me. I have like random information about random things, and I compartmentalize them, and then it just comes out when I need it. It's like, I knew this.
It's insane.
I don't know why my mind thinks that way, but
it's insane. Like sometimes I genuinely think, I'm like, what the heck? And I don't understand it, but sometimes I accept. And that's why, I want to talk about this after, actually. I want to talk about the direction of which I think content creation and social media is heading.
Why after, dude?
Oh, because you asked me about the podcast.
Nah, but I think it go part and parcel. But first of all, you're not offended when people call you Pepe. You actually enjoy
Oh,
that.
I bought into it.
Yeah, so you're a Pepe.
Totally, of course.
Do people in your house, like your parents, call you Pepe?
They will around my friends, yeah. They'll
Really?
call me Adam for the most part. I respond to both. I'm like a dog now. I've been trained to respond to both Adam and Pepe, and like subconsciously, I'll notice if there's another Adam around me. So like if someone says Adam and there's me and another Adam, I'll just I won't respond.
When you have kids one day, do you want them to call you dad or do you want them to call you Pepe?
I want them to love me. I don't know what they're going to call me. They could call me whatever the fuck they want to call me, to be honest with you.
That's a wonderful answer.
I have no idea what they're going to call me. I don't give a shit.
All right,
They could call me poo-poo. I've heard every single iteration of Pepe. Every single one, to the point where if someone calls me something different, like I don't know, like peeps a poopa or like something. If someone were to call me something different that I hadn't heard before, I compliment them.
Really?
Yes.
Why? Because they give you some new content, something
or just
creative?
something different.
All right, fair enough. You were talking about content creation and where it's going.
Yes.
Is that whatever you're going to say now? Is that going to tie into what your podcast is going to be? Like, are you thinking that there's going to be some sort of metamorphosis of content creation? Does it have anything to do with AI?
It's not really much about. Actually, you know what? I guess in a weird way, it is intertwined with AI. But my perspective is this. So yes, in a way, yes. I think that where we're headed is, and actually, I didn't really have this realization until my really best friend and I had this conversation about a week ago. And I've totally shifted my mentality on social media since then and content creation. But where it's headed, I believe, is towards people genuinely being interested in someone's personality and their quirks and their just themselves as a whole, and treating it as if it's like a brand. So like when you subscribe to someone on YouTube 10 years ago, you're subscribing to them most likely because their videos looked like they were edited well. They're meeting a crazy celebrity. They're doing a weird challenge. They're doing something. There's an aspect to it that the person watching probably wouldn't have done. So that's like, oh my God, I'm watching a vlog of someone who I don't know, he crashed a party of a celebrity, right? Something that I wouldn't have done from my bed in Canada. And now, because it's so accessible to everyone, and the way that people absorb this content now has changed so much. It's like a scroll, like people are seeing so much shit. I think that where it's headed is that people are going to be genuinely interested in someone as a person and their raw authenticity behind just a little camera, as opposed to people putting in hard edits and hard subjects into these videos, because everyone's trying the same thing. And I can tell, because now I could be completely wrong. You know, there's always going to be people who put in the effort for this quality and you know, like they spend 6 hours for a 1 minute long video and it'll hit because it's done so well. But what I'm thinking is there's a perfect little mixture there in between where, for example, what I've found is that my videos on social media that have performed the best, now the algorithm is the algorithm, it chooses what it wants to do. But the videos that I have found that perform the best are ones that I don't put any planning into. Those are videos that I have an idea on the spot, I film it in a raw and authentic way, and something good comes out of it. And whether that's, you know, my most popular video on TikTok happened to be me trying to make the Queen's Guard laugh.
I saw it. I actually reposted on my
that's amazing.
TikTok. Yeah.
Thank you. And the crazy thing is that video, I remember being there. We're in London and I'm looking at these guys and my buddy's telling me, he's like, you know, like, you should try to fuck with the Queen's Guards, man. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, okay, I'm totally going to do that. I'm like, can you please just record me? He's like, no, I don't want to. I don't know. I'm like, please just do it. He's like, okay, fine. Records me. All I do is just walk up to him. I have a notes app on my phone with anytime I think of something, I just write it down so I don't forget. Funny, weird, whatever. I open it. I scroll to the first thing that catches my eye and I just say it. And I'm like, isn't it crazy how all these girls always wear bunny costumes to these Halloween parties? The most random thing. It makes no sense. There's no context. I'm standing outside of the fucking Tower of London talking to a mute soldier. And I'm asking about girls wearing bunny costumes to Halloween parties. And it gets 11 million views on social media. And where I'm headed with that is like, I just genuinely believe, especially after this conversation that I had with my buddy the other week, is that people don't want to always see the most well edited and so much effort put into such a crazy little, like, they don't want to feel like they're being marketed to. They want to feel like they're watching an authentic person or resonating with a personality, as opposed to resonating with, oh my God, I'm only going to like this video because there's so many cool, quick little edits. And I think that like, I've always been so big on the video editing, and I was always the one in the school projects from fucking grade 6. I would download iMovie on my computer and I would sit there for hours. I've loved editing. I love the technical aspect of being able to edit the final product of what people see. And I think that I've always had that mentality, and I was still doing that. Like, if you scroll through my TikTok account, a lot of my older videos, and I say older, but like realistically around a year ago, a lot of those videos are heavily edited to the point where, you know, it took an hour or so to film, which is average, I would say, sometimes for depending on what you're trying to do. But the editing would take hours. The editing would take 2 hours to add the captions and the quick cuts and the this and that and the sound effects and the audio. And, you know, I'd post it, and it's just so quickly, not only does it lead to burnout from a creative standpoint, but it also limits you to the type of audience you can reach, because you're hoping that the people actually care that you put in that much effort. Meanwhile, I think a lot of people just want to see that you're a real person. Maybe you got some quirks to your personality. Maybe you're talking about what you did during the day. Maybe you're like, what I've been doing recently is literally just filming videos in my car, talking about random shit, seeing where the conversation goes, like this. Almost like it's a podcast with the person scrolling.
What I saw, the funny was the one you pulling up to like Timmy's or Starbucks and saying, this is what it's like for a Canadian. Thank you. I'm sorry.
You want to know what's crazy about that? I just left my friend's house 2 days ago. So after this conversation I had with my buddy last week, I'm like, you know what? You are right. I was a little high, but I was like, I had one of those moments. I was like, holy fuck. Like, dude, like, this is actually where it's heading though. Like, I've been trying this shit for 2-3 years now. I finally feel like I understand it a little bit. For the next 90 days, I told myself this 7 days ago. I said, for the next 90 days, 6 days ago, I'm going to upload 2 to 4 videos a day. I don't give a shit what it is, but it's going to be somewhat raw. And the reason is because I can do that easier. And I just think that's what's going to hit. And within 4 days, I had 2 videos that outperformed anything I've posted in the last 3 months. Within 4 days.
I'm going to add a little bit to that. And I never thought about it from that angle, because until you created a path for it, it makes sense. I think that you're certainly onto something, whether that's going to be a trend. You know, what engages me. So, you know, that could change in a couple of years when the way things are moving in a couple of months. I think the only thing I would add to that is the reason people are engaging with it is because it's something that they would be able to do on their own.
Right.
And if they had the courage to do it or the willpower to do it. And is when you're looking at something and you can see in the comments when people are criticizing.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah. But
it is the best.
And it looks easy when somebody else does it. Like, yeah, this guy walked up. He just filmed himself saying please and thank you and whatever, right? Now, if I were to do that, I'd probably take 20 takes and feel like it needs to be something. You had the courage to do something that takes you out of your comfort zone, but that's because you derive pleasure from it, because you probably are a selfish fiend who enjoys to make other people laugh, because maybe you have or have not seen some drama and trauma in your life, and you don't want people to be sad, right? Or you just really enjoy making other people laugh, but you did it anyways. Not trying will kill more dreams than failing to do it well.
Isn't that crazy?
It's so crazy. Like, I flew down here to do this podcast with you. Right?
Wow.
I flew down also to see my family, my kids. Right. But yes, obviously you were the primary reason, right?
Top of the list.
And people like to pigeonhole us. And I remember when I started the podcast and I made it live, holy man, people around me that knew me, they're like, what, you're a podcaster now? Aren't you in real estate? And I'm like, why can't I do both? And why do you care?
who cares?
Right. And then when I stopped getting over the like defending myself for doing this, like, you know what? Maybe I just want to wear no underwear for the next month. Is that really any of your fucking business? If that's the choice I make, right? We spend so much time trying to get it perfect. It's better to do it shitty and in whatever it is that makes you happy. Then like this is it. This is like I almost feel like a very stupid philosopher.
No, you feel like a wise guru.
Yeah, right.
And
I am like by far, I am most critical of myself than anybody will ever be. I'm sure you're very similar.
Oh my God.
In that regard. I think most people are. You know, I spend all my life shooting all over myself. I should have done this. I should have done that. I could have done. This doesn't work that way. But as you get a little bit older, and I think you are wise beyond your years. You know, you're ripe age of 12, and you've done so much.
12, but you switch the numbers around.
Yeah. 24. By the way, Joe Pavelski.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Joe Pavelski. Who as a Toronto boy?
Can I just tell you something? The day that I have him on my podcast, I can die happy.
I can actually hook you up with him. I'll tell you why. Ryan Close's son plays hockey with my son, and Ryan Close on the ice. And I've got Ryan Close. Not that we're buddies, but I have his number.
We
have texted. And the other day, like I say, a couple of months ago, we were sitting down. We were watching the kids try out for travel hockey in Boca. And he was saying how Pavelski is like the best leader he's ever played with. And he goes, he's a machine.
It's insane.
And he works for New York now. So I'm not trying to make it seem like I'm buddies with him. Like I say hi, bye, and we have texted a couple of times. But I can get, if that's your wish, that's your, I will, I have no problem.
Anyone who knows me.
Yeah, but so what I want to get to is the root of your problem.
All I'll say is I did meet Ryan Clough too, actually. When I was 11 on a trip, my parents took me to San Jose for my birthday.
Were you starstruck?
Oh my God, yeah. And Pavelski gave me his stick at a practice.
Why? As a Toronto boy, a Leaf fan, I hope.
No. I respect them though.
This conversation is over.
I respect that. You know, every
cut it off.
All of my friends are Leafs fans, so I will totally root for them in the playoffs if the Sharks aren't, which they won't.
Bandwagon
for a long time. Yeah.
Won't make room.
I'm happy to be on the bandwagon because my team stinks right now.
Your team is the Leafs, young man. Do not fuck with this. Like honestly, like all right, but Pavelski because of the Sharks, or the Sharks because of Pavelski. Like why Pavelski? And if you're listening to this, Mr. Pavelski, you have your number one fan here.
Joe, if you're listening to this, not only am I your number one fan, but we met on a couple occasions. I also have a picture with your mom, and I'm pretty sure it's your aunt, because when you were here for the World Cup of Hockey, Russia against the US.
Oh, I thought this was going to...
No. I pulled up
picture with your mom.
I pulled up to her house.
Right there, and that's what we sent Chloe. Like, yo, this guy needs to jump on this.
Yeah, exactly. No, so I was wearing a Pavelski jersey. I was the only one wearing, obviously, a Pavelski Sharks jersey at the USA versus whatever World Cup of Hockey game in Toronto. And yeah, his family members were there, and his mom and his grandma stopped me, and they're like, that is my son. And I'm like... Well, okay. I mean, your son is like my number one. It's interesting, It's crazy.
You're a goalie living in Toronto, you're Pavelski. It was a forward, and not even like. Are you normal?
You want to know why I think this is so weird?
You just wanted to be different. You wanted to piss everyone else off.
I always want to be different. Piss everyone off. Of course. I mean, that's my driving motivation behind most decisions I make. But also, Joe Pavelski was drafted in the 7th round of the NHL. And coming from, I mean, he still got drafted, which is amazing. But look at how far he has come. I mean, he hasn't won a Stanley Cup, but he, like you said, when you spoke to Mr. Closey, right? Ryan Close said himself that Joe Pavelski is probably the best leader that he's seen off the ice.
Yeah, he did say that.
This guy was drafted in the 7th round.
Right.
What business does he have turning into a generational player in a major sports league? It's amazing.
So is the root for the underdog mentality? Is that what drives you to be a fan of his? But why did you not pick the other?
I just really liked him.
Is he the only one in the 7th round that actually made a career in the show?
Ooh, no, probably not. But the most successful ever for sure in the 7th round.
I'm gonna make some counter arguments to that. Pavel Datsyuk, but but there's guys that have never been drafted that have made like super careers in the NHL. You recently got a chance to hang out And with actually in my house,
Of course.
in Florida,
Beautiful house, by the way.
Thank you.
You would expect it for real estate agents.
with my nephew and my dog. By the way, did you know you have an allergy to dogs before you agreed to come to?
Of course, I've known for a while. I've had an allergy to dogs and cats, by the way. So I'm not very discriminatory to dogs.
And you still decide, because I have a big dog, and it's a
Huge
scary looking dog. If you don't know,
She is adorable. Though.
She is a giant marshmallow. But if when first glance you look at that thing, like I'm gonna die.
Well, Jesse was texting me before. He's like, "You got to watch out for the dog. The dog is crazy."
Oh, really? He was egging you on?
And I was like, okay, like whatever. And I was like, I'm gonna bring some Reactin, and I forgot the Reactin actually. So
he told me you had a night that you just arrived, and he goes, you couldn't stop laughing. Now I don't know how drunk you guys were.
Which night?
But he said you broke out into hives, and you just couldn't stop laughing.
Well, so I broke out into hives only on my arms, so I knew I would be okay. And luckily, you had some sort of, I don't know if it was like a kid's Benadryl or something, but it worked. It worked.
Have you guys been digging through my drawers?
No, not the bad stuff.
Oh, okay,
only,
thank God.
Only the.
By the way, I had a vape pen that wasn't in the same spot as we originally left it. I just want you to know that.
That's interesting. I don't smoke.
Vape. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't believe you. Yeah. So you roll up in Florida, and we talk about guys that have never been drafted. I'll tell you that I obviously have a soft spot for my nephew. He's training with us. He's been through a lot of adversity in a very short time in his life. You know, and it's stuff that like I don't think that adversity is a bad thing. Let me clarify that. As long as it doesn't kill you, it will make you stronger. As cliche as that may sound, it is absolutely the necessary path if you want to succeed in anything. I watch him skate. I watch him play. His hockey IQ is through the roof.
It's unbelievable.
And
genuinely.
I say that, and I obviously have a bias, and I don't think there's anything wrong with a bias either. And if you don't like what I'm saying, fuck you. I think he is the best player not drafted into the NHL skating in the world today. And not only just because of his pure hockey talent and skill.
It's his fucking mentality.
It is just wild. And how much sacrifice he has. And I tell him it's not really sacrifice because I would kill to be him in his position, knowing what I know as a 42-year-old man and being in his, and having the opportunities that are still presented in front of him. He's a mere 20 years old. But I mean, I watch that and you say something like Pavelski and stuff like that. And I think that if you do not go through the bullshit, you don't appreciate the gains. And we've seen that happen over and over and over. First round picks in any sport that, you know, end up being busts. And are they busts? No. Maybe they just, their meteoric rise was too quick and they weren't ready to deal with it. Mike Tyson had a really interesting quote about that. He said, God messes with you by giving you everything you wish for to see if you can handle it. You know, I love listening to people like that have really been through the ups and downs
and
of
he's
life.
seen a lot.
Yeah, he's been the absolute like epitome of like pinnacle all the way top of the mountain to like, you know, 6 feet below kind of thing.
He also
right?
loves mushrooms.
He is actually a neighbor of a friend of ours in Florida.
Really?
Yeah. He's one of the guys, and I know people say I do not idolize him, but he's one of the people that if like I had to make a list of 10 people I'd love to have dinner with, Mike Tyson would be with it. And some people would say, how could you say that for a convicted rapist? I'll say that I don't, you know, he's convicted, so I can't say otherwise, but I don't think he touched anybody like in that way. I think he was made and so Mike Tyson in his prime spent behind bars.
Wow. And
he'll even go further to say it in a lot of interviews and podcasts that he'll say it was the best 3 years of his life or something like that because he had peace. They took everything away from him and all he was left with was no noise because he's like, if you don't know this Mike Tyson story, you should definitely look into it. Like he was adopted by a guy named Customato who saw raw potential in the man. And he was beating the shit out of grown professional boxers at the age of 18, like grown men. No, Mike Tyson lost his first fight to Buster Douglas in the 12th round because he never went past 4. Like nobody, you know, like he won the fight when he stepped in the ring. Everybody's going in there and all this frill and all this cool music. He rolled up with no socks, black shorts, and a torn towel over him and walked into the ring like, I got no time for this shit. I'm going to kill you and leave. Mike Tyson's the most. Costomato died early. He was his mentor, and then he fell into like the grips of Don King, who's a boxing promoter. He made all this money and basically walked away with his riches. I mean, that's the summary of Mike Tyson's career as far as I know. Yeah, but Mike Tyson was like a phenom. He was like ahead of his time in that sport. There hasn't been a heavyweight like him and ever. Crazy story.
I've never gotten as much into the raw fighting sports, but he's got a wonderful story.
I can't really watch MMA at its core because I think it's way too violent, and because I will faint when I see somebody snapping the other person's arm back. Like I can't watch that shit. It's a bit too much to me. So, anyways, I think your generation is fucked.
Okay.
Look, you're how old? 24, you said?
I'm 21.
21. All right. I said, no, it's okay. 12.
Well, that's why when you called me 12, I said just flip the numbers around. It's okay. Your math is a bit off.
Actually, my math is my strong suit. So
Me too.
You're really shedding some light here into some insecurities. The only thing I can understand is the number. No, don't cut fucking anything out. Anything. I am human and I am stupid and silly. And I think your generation is fucked.
A little bit.
You just graduated from university, right?
Yes. Well, I haven't graduated yet, but I'm done.
Didn't you? You just came back from something. Didn't you graduate? Isn't that what you told me?
Yeah,
you lied to me?
No, I don't lie. I'm actually a very honest person.
Really? Don't do that.
No, I'm pretty honest. Right. Everyone lies, but I'm
Everybody
for the
lies.
most part, I try to stay honest.
I've been posing as a podcaster for months now.
No, that's not a lie.
Is it? All right.
That's honest. That's truth. I just did a 4-month semester abroad in France, and so I'm done all my credits. I graduate in October. So I technically am graduated, yeah. But it's one of those things, that experience alone changed my life.
Why?
It's so hard to put into words.
You got laid by a French girl?
I did.
Oh. Does she know that?
She does.
Oh. Are you still talking to her?
I do talk to her once in a while. She's awesome. She's awesome. If she's also listening to this, that would be an incredible coincidence. But yeah, she was awesome.
You're going to send her a copy of this
I'll
podcast.
send her a copy
Why
of
do you mean
this.
if?
Bonjour. Comment ça va?
What's her name?
Bonjour, Lilou.
Lilou, bonjour.
Bonjour. And what's amazing about that experience, and
Were you talking about France or again?
I know. It falls under the umbrella, right? But the experience of living abroad as a whole at this age and with some of my best friends was that there was just not a care in the world. And it was so amazing. New experiences and new people and new experiences with new people and just a new day. It was every day had brought so much. And it's something that we only sort of realized towards the end, I think, because at the start, it was like, oh my God, like we're going to London and we're going to fucking Portugal or we're going here, we're going there. We got school, we got this. Like it felt like a normal life. Then at the end, we're like, wow, like we're going to have to transition back from this new life that we just created for ourselves. And it took me at least 2 months. I've only just recently adjusted to being back, if I have.
Were you depressed?
The fact that I wasn't so quick to say no leads me to believe that it's closer to a yes. But I wouldn't classify myself as clinically depressed during the 2-month period.
Oh, you were sad.
But I was very sad. There would be days where I'd write in my journal, I'd say, like, this is crazy. Like, I just need to feel that feeling again of just sitting in an Italian coffee shop. And I wrote a poem just off the top of my head, just what I felt like that.
Do you remember
one day. No, I'd have to read it. But that's just how my mind works, you know. Like sometimes
you write poetry.
I write.
You write. Period.
I write. I have to write. Yeah.
Just randomness.
I have to write. It is mandatory.
Why?
Because I love it so much. But the reason I love it so much is because it's like it liberates my mind.
I got to circle back. All right, now you're about to graduate. You had the best 3 minutes of your life with Lilou. Did she take
3
your
minutes is a stretch.
Yeah, that's including foreplay. Did she take your virginity?
She took my French girl virginity.
Oh, okay. Did you take hers?
No.
I'm gonna send this to her mom.
Yeah, I don't know. If you could find her mom, that would be crazy.
What?
She's a very sweet girl.
I bet. Nice. I've heard about you many times via my nephews, which are like as close to not. I have as much love in my heart for them as I almost do for my kids, but you can't unless they're your own kids. But it's as close as it'll ever be able to come. And I've heard a lot about you in so many ways. And I have such a good relationship with them that like when Jesse's like, can Pepe come? Like, is he a good dude? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tom, come to my house. I've never met you. Come and hang out with my house.
Such an amazing thing. I was so, and still am so grateful.
No, dude, it was not. And you didn't need to leave that bottle of wine, sincerely, but it says a lot about your upbringing, and your parents did a really good job raising you.
I have the best parents.
Yeah, you could tell
because who now know everything about my French sex life.
If you think your parents didn't think you had sex,
no, they don't. I'm very open with my parents. We talk about a lot of stuff.
Cool, great. That's a very fortunate thing. You're a very fortunate guy.
Oh, for sure.
And you know, to circle back on us, so like, I'm so close with them. They've said so many amazing things about you as an individual, right? Just like, he's a super kind guy. He's a nice dude. I can now see, like, you can vibe with somebody or you cannot vibe with them. Something just like a conversation feels contrived, or it doesn't, or it's forced, or there's an agenda. There's none of that going on around here.
No.
But you do not fit the mold of who I generally have on my podcast. And also because I realize that I'm starting to create a mold is exactly why I want to step away from it. Is the podcast was made as a transitionary like resource for people who wanted to leave Canada for so many reasons.
Yeah.
Politics, finances, you know, people are just done with this COVID and the lockdowns and all that. And, you know, the gas pedaling that's going on now. But I said, no, I just want to meet cool people. I want to talk to them, and they have so much perspective. And I've learned more from like listening to audiobooks and podcasts than I have, you know, from probably anything else outside of life experience. And I'm sitting in front of you, and you're a genuine, authentic dude. You're obviously a creative guy. You're going to have a crazy, crazy good future. So I'm going to say, you know, I had him on my podcast when he was still figuring. It doesn't matter what you're going to do. You're going to do it well. All right. But you can clearly see that your mind thinks as a creative because you're writing things down. You want to get the information that's in your head at that time down so you don't forget it, because it will be pushed out by other things. And so you're like, I got to get this out. This is gold. And you got notes in your phone, and you're putting, and then that thing you circle back to, and look how well that worked out for you, right? And that's your first of probably 1,000 viral videos if you keep making content, and you likely will. So you're like super cool, dude. But
thank you.
I look at your generation, and I did say it already a couple of times, and say, oh, you guys are fucked. But I don't want to prime the conversation. I want to know, what are your biggest fears and concerns as you get into like this adult, real quote unquote life? Like what are the things that challenge you as, you know, thinking about what you would be the 30-year-old version 9 years from today?
Right.
What would that be?
It's almost a perfect swing back to the question you asked me when we started about what does making it mean in 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because it's so hard to say that. And 10 years feels like such a long time. But if you know, if I play it out in my head, I'm like, holy shit. Like, for example, like this past year, it felt like so much has happened. So I can only imagine what could happen in 10 years or even in 1 year. So I think that to think that far ahead is so... it's so hard to even get there. But if I were to touch on what are you getting at what I specifically think will be
what
my
are your fears downfall? Or if you don't have any fears, you think that the future is...
everyone's got fears.
What are yours?
My personal fears or fears for our world?
You know what? I don't think one can happen without making decisions to the other. Like if you think the world is going to end up being a nasty place, then your decisions will be made to try to shelter yourself from those potential inevitable outcomes, right? Like I hear a lot of people fearing AI and what it does in the future. I'm personally not one of those people, because I think that it's going to be the renaissance of a new age of efficiency on every scale, and it will reduce costs, and we're in inflationary markets. Yeah. But I do think that if I do have to pinpoint a fear to me, is that I think we are putting the wrong people in charge of policing what is arguably the biggest, most dangerous force.
Which is AI?
AI.
I think the conversations around AI are so insane because everyone talks. It comes up in every situation you could imagine. Because it covers such a wide array of topics.
It's everywhere.
It's everything. It's everything and everywhere. Sure. And I think that, so if we do talk about in 10 years, my fears surrounding AI specifically, I'm more on your side.
I want to know what your fears are. Like, are you worried that you're not going to be able to buy a house? Are you worried that you're going to meet the right girl? Are you worried about whether you're going to stay in Canada?
I could scroll through. I have a whole fucking notepad on my fears.
Do it. Bring it. Put it.
I don't
If you write this shit down and you're that way, you are so much more ahead of anyone I know at 21, because I probably spent half of my years of 21 not sober.
I write a lot of shit down. I don't have a specific document of my fears, but if I had my journal with me right now, I could pinpoint a lot of times where I did genuinely write down my anxieties. I would say my biggest personal fear, and I guess it sounds really cliche, but would be sort of like what you spoke about, I guess, would be regrets. And regrets, I think, would relate directly with happiness. And I have a lot of conversations with my friends about this, where everyone is so existential. Everyone's always, oh my God, like, fuck, I need to make money now, or I can't fucking live in this country, or fucking, everyone's got, this almost like this dark cloud above their head because everything's so crazy, right? Everyone thinks everything's so nuts. And I think that's crazy at 21 years old. And I am such a big partaker in those conversations too. Like, I'm always, I'm so glad to get on a philosophical level with anyone. That's why I think this is
What's
great.
your stance?
On what?
On you're saying everyone's existential.
Everyone's existential. It's insane.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound to me like you are necessarily.
I don't think I'm the most existential, but I think that in conversations where it gets philosophical, I think that sometimes my views could be more existential.
I think my question to you is, where does your rabbit hole go? Like, everybody has a rabbit hole. I know I've got a whole bunch of them where things like, it starts here, we can go AI and it'll go, holy fuck, we're all going to be, like, my kids are going to date robots kind of thing. Like, that's how quickly it goes from like, I want to edit YouTube videos to like, I'm run by a Terminator.
Yeah.
Right? There's no middle ground.
I think it's just maybe people not being able to, I don't know, because we're so fortunate. Like, I've been very fortunate. Wow. I've grown up
your parents did a good job.
My parents did a great job.
Yeah. You're grateful,
but I'm so fortunate. So that's maybe why my perspective on my fears would be different than someone else's perspective on fears, because my fears are maybe more related to, not. Here's what I think. I'll be completely honest with you. Most of the time, and I like to think of myself as very self-aware. And what I think about a lot is that my biggest obstacle, and most people's, even if they don't realize it, is their own mind. And you sort of brought that up earlier, but I think that my biggest fear would be my own mind restricting me from achieving whatever it is that I want to, or that I dream of.
What do you dream of?
I dream of bringing joy to other people. And it sounds insane because it's
not at all.
Well, I think sometimes it does. Because or maybe when I say it out,
can't put a dollar figure on it
out loud. Yeah. Because you can't put a dollar figure on it for sure, right? Like I said, I was raised very comfortably. My dad works a very stable job. And, I'm very glad that they're not forcing me into, oh, you got to move out of the house right now and find a corporate job position, sustain yourself and this and that. Because I think that sometimes that can be, it could lead people to ultimately discovering what they're truly going to follow with their lives, but I think that it could also be detrimental to someone's path. So I'm very grateful that my parents aren't really forcing me in that direction at all. But in terms of my own upbringing, I'm very fortunate, and I think that might mean that my fear of, where I guess making it is, bringing joy to whoever that may be, and I guess that my fear is not that I don't achieve that, but my fear is that I don't achieve that because I stop myself. If someone else were to stop me, but I keep trying and I keep trying and I keep trying, at least I know I fucking gave it my all. But if it gets to the point where it's like, it's like my own mind is sort of, because like I said, my mind is like a ricochet a little bit, and it sort of just is always bouncing around and new shit, new ideas. And sometimes it's great, right? Like I've got all these ideas, but sometimes it's tough to actually stay on track with one particular thing. And so I don't know. My biggest fear would be letting my own mind not be my demise, but maybe be what stops me from actually letting my mind take me. Isn't that crazy? It's like my mind could get me there, but my mind could also restrict me from getting there.
I listen to you and I am legitimately in awe. And
why is that?
Let me explain to you. because the circle of people I grew around with were all like immigrant kids, and have all done well for themselves and financially and work really hard. And I don't think any one of us is doing what we dreamt we ever thought we would be doing, and because we looked for that stability. We looked for financial security. We're always going to be looking for financial security because the more money you make, the more expensive lifestyle you have, and
the more kids can flaunt to other people.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff, the flexing or whatever. But if I were to sit probably 100 kids, and you are a kid,
relatively speaking, yeah.
No, you're a kid. No, until you had your own kids, you're a kid. I thought I was a man when I turned a man. No, I thought I was a man when I got married. I was not a man. I was not a man until I had kids. Only because it makes you believe and think about something other than your own sphere of life existence as far as you know it. You can love your family, you can love people around you, but until other people are literally like, their survival depends on your ability to be able to provide. And I'm not talking about just financial means. Unconditional love, probably most important currency that exists in the world
and health
today. Yeah, but they part and parcel. Yeah, if you're not healthy, fuck everything else, right? And if I were to sit 100 kids like you in front of me and I were to ask them, I'd probably say 95% of them, or 95 of them, would talk about how expensive it is to get a home, how difficult it is to be able to survive with how much money you make versus how expensive it is to pay for a mortgage and grocery bills and all. And all those are valid concerns, and I'm not trying to devalue them by any stretch. I don't think anybody is thinking that far ahead like you are, because your mind and your self-imposed limitations will stop your progress, financial and otherwise, happiness, way more than your ability to earn a living. And what I mean by that is that if you accept that you're worth $60,000 a year and you want to climb that corporate ladder or whatever, great.
Which a lot of people will.
Yeah, that's because
which
that's
is fine.
It's totally fine. What I mean is you will get to a point where, either forced or not, where you will realize that you self-imposed what your value is at a set date and then try to work from that benchmark. Whereby if you don't limit your abilities vis-a-vis your mind early on, like, you sounds to me exactly like what you're doing, and I hope to work for you one day.
For me or with? I'd like to work with
you. For you. Absolutely, because I can't think at your wavelength. I think you're an exceptional kid. I think you're an exceptional human being.
That's really,
and
I think that praise.
Yeah, well, you know what? Earn it then, because you do deserve it. You've got something that I have not seen in anyone your age, or maybe I'm not hanging around enough. I'm hanging around too many like-minded, biased, jaded people like me. Maybe I'm hanging around too many of those, right? But I know what I thought at 21 I was in that 95 percentile that I'm talking about. But then you get to a certain age and you're like, if I would have just said, you know what, I can do more because I can be more, and then, you know, not necessarily put a number to it, then sky's the limit. I think a paycheck is a drug we're given to quash our ambitions.
Jesus Christ.
But it's necessary for some people. So I'm not being judgmental with anything that I say. But like, if you take this perception and you have guys and girls and people your age that are thinking like you're thinking, where their mind is going to be the biggest barrier, and you're willing to jump into the fire, especially at this age where you've got no risk. You know, you've got a roof over your head. You probably have, you know, you're fortunate to have healthy parents that can support you and are not like saying, go get a job. You need to get a job. You need to start making money. You need to blah, blah, blah. Like, it sounds to me like they're like showing you the way and getting the fuck out of your way. Right. And then you got to go and make it. The flip side of the risk of that is that for you now have to become accountable to your own outcomes.
100%.
And that's a scary thing to do. But when you absorb and realize that, like, if I fuck things up, I fuck things up. And you're okay with that? Dude, sky's the limit. I couldn't believe that I even went on this rant. I didn't think that like I would get that sort of value out of you. I learned so much from people sitting across the mic. I didn't think I'd learn from a 21-year-old throwing Hiller who's like a San Jose fan. Like it's pretty cool shit.
I feel like I'm also learning a lot just from this. You know, I love talking to people. That's why I can't wait to start something like this on my own.
So why mushrooms, flamingos? Like, did you have an acid trip that went wrong?
Well, okay. So, I mean, if you want to get into psychedelics, it's a whole different conversation. But
we can.
There are some. Here's the thing. So, like I sort of talked about in terms of just accepting the way that shit goes, like with my name as in Pepe, and encouraging it, the randomness. My whole, I don't want to say act, but my whole ordeal with, you know, putting myself out there or pushing my personality towards this content creation thing that I'm going with is this different angle on I guess you could call it comedy, but I don't even want to restrict it to comedy because I think comedy is so subjective. I just love the aspect of randomness. And I love the aspect of people asking questions, because when people ask a question, like they have something is driving them to ask a question. Maybe they genuinely care. And then the fact that they ask a question means that it's going to start some sort of, like you said, a rabbit hole into maybe this deeper discussion into anything. And so when I the funny thing is this, yeah. So the idea of and it is the name of the show that I'm going to start is Mushroom Flamingo Pie. And it's amazing because I love that reaction. Just a little chuckle. It doesn't mean shit. Right. It really means nothing. And it's like, it's just because, you know what? It's like when someone has to think so much about what something means, it's almost like at that point, they're caring enough to think about it. They're like, oh my God, like mushroom flamingo, like what the fuck does that even mean? Like that's so, why would you do that? Like, are you crazy? Is this guy insane? Like I don't give a fuck if people think I'm insane.
Really? Do you genuinely believe that? Do you genuinely prescribe to that?
Do I care that people think I'm insane?
Or what people think of you?
I think, well, you know what? I think everyone cares.
Sure.
But I think at least
you don't care enough for it to stop you.
I tell myself enough that I don't care.
All right.
So that it resonates with me. Even if deep down there is a part of me that cares or about certain people, you know, like
you were hugged enough as a child. And if your parents are listening to this, I can't not reiterate this enough. I hope to raise kids like you guys raised.
Wow. That is so kind. I can't, they're definitely going to listen to this.
Even when you're going to tell them that you banged little Leela. 2 minutes, like your dad will be disappointed.
No, my dad will be proud.
Really? 3 minutes?
I don't know. Well, okay, listen, like I didn't have a timer on me, but you know,
she told me, don't worry, I texted her.
There's a time zone difference, so we have to take that into account. This isn't Canadian time, this is European time.
All right.
But the name just stems from randomness, and it's always been my driver of whatever the fuck it is. If I'm writing something or performing something or coming up with a creative concept, I just let my mind carry me. And when I had this conversation with your nephew, Jesse, in your house in Florida, short of two and a half weeks ago. And we were like, yeah, like this podcast or whatever idea you're going to follow through with is just such a good idea in terms of, you know, the path that I'm taking right now. I remember we were just talking about it. And by the way, Jesse, I know you're going to be listening to this at some point. Fucking love you. Shout out to you. Thank you for everything. You are the best. I love your mentality. God, you've got this. You really do. But we had some conversations. So me and Jesse, we had some conversations just in your living room. And some of those conversations were so amazingly intuitive. And we got it's so crazy. You can't script some shit. You just have genuine conversations with people that really make you just resonate and sit down. And you're like, wow, like, holy shit. Like, I don't know if this conversation changed me, but I learned so much about myself and this other person. And those are some of the conversations that Jesse and I had, like right in your living room, to the point where I was even asking him, I said, what, like, I want you to genuinely tell me, like, do you enjoy playing hockey? When you turn something into your lifestyle so much, you know, if I turn this comedy content creation thing into my lifestyle / when I do, am I still going to love it? You know, like feeling myself, like the pressure that I put on myself, you know, once again, what other people think, this and that, the pressure mounts, you know, my own pressure, my own mind. everything, like the burnout, the workouts, the everything that comes with dedicating yourself to one specific thing so much. Do you even like it? And we had a conversation like that. And to be honest with you, I can't even really remember the direction that it headed, but we got into like such a deep talk, and it was so amazing. And I was just like, if I can even get a sliver of this fucking wisdom from anyone on a show, I couldn't imagine how many people it could inspire. Honestly, like just even someone like Jesse, someone like, I don't know, anyone who has something to share. Like you sort of said, you just want to hear people's stories. I want to hear people's stories. And I think that the funny aspect or the ironic aspect of the name Mushroom Flamingo Pie is that it doesn't mean shit. It actually means nothing. And the point is that there's no expectations. I just want something where people can just tune in and they can be either taken away. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they'll ask a question about the name and why the logo is so simple when the name is so crazy. And I want something where people just genuinely can feel like they can have a conversation and have even a sliver of that type of conversation that I had with Jesse, where you can be honest, like you said, or drive any sort of intuitive conversation with someone, because I think that's so important. And to actually circle back to what we said, and when you asked me what's like some of your biggest fears, even revolving around AI and this and that, is one of my biggest fears genuinely is potentially losing some sort of human connection. And I don't know where that's going to apply to my life in the near future or the long term or whatever. But once it gets to the point where we are literally only living through screens and bubbles of people that we've known forever, like, I don't know. It scares me, because fucking, I don't know where I grew so fond of this. And I think it's just a collection of my experiences. So Europe, summer camp, university, whatever. The little things that a fortunate, white Jewish kid like me, to be honest, right, grew up with. I think those experiences really allowed me to develop this need for genuine human connection. And it does scare me. It scares me that maybe in a selfish way, yeah, for me, it might affect me. I might, lose human connection at some point in our lives with all this digital bullshit. But at the same time, it also scares me that maybe my kids, one day, I want to have kids. They might not know what it's like to have a genuine human connection with people. And I think that is so important. If you let that aspect of anything, whatever you do, if you let the human connection and the bring joy to other people aspect drive your work or your life, I can't see how you don't succeed.
Dude.
How can you not succeed if the driving force behind what you do is human connection or bringing joy to other people? How can you not succeed? Money aside, success, whatever success
is going to be very relative as you get older. And you did say it, you are coming at this from a position of privilege, because somebody who's homeless or lost their parents can't imagine a life where the basic necessities that they need to live off of, those are primary, but they can still achieve great stardom. And there's a lot of people out there in the creative space that have done that, and the adversities probably brought them to it. But there are levels, and you'll never stop trying to get to another level.
Never.
Like if I told my 20-year-old self, that I would be where I was at 30, I'd be like, dude, kids made it. And at 30, I'm like, I'm a fucking failure.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And now
I hear that from everyone, though.
And I restarted by moving to Florida. I can genuinely tell you that I had parents that have given us everything at their expense. And I am that privileged kid just like you, in different ways, but absolutely that they went without. So we have what we have. I have a wife that I find to be like the hottest woman in the world. I say that legit. I do say that legit.
I've never met her. I would love to meet her.
Like I am more attracted to my wife now than I ever have been before.
Wow.
And it also has to do with the fact that we've had this shift in our dynamics when we moved, because of her space in the world and her business. And I see how hard she's working to provide for the family while I take care of other aspects that she used to take care of and stuff like that. I'm an but when I moved, I felt like a freaking failure because my identity was money, was making money. My identity was providing and giving my kids all the things that, you know, my parents gave to me, and then upgrading that. And then as you get older, you also realize that your floor is your parents' ceiling. All right. They did the best they could with what they knew at that time. And then you want to try to get that and move that.
Floor is your parents' ceiling. Interesting.
Yeah. Like what
wow.
they get that. And then And then you move that, and your kids will hopefully do the same. Mm-hmm. Right. And we aspire to do more. But I had to start from scratch, and I'm still starting from scratch. I never thought I'd have this podcast. And when I stepped away from what I thought my identity was here in Canada and got into Florida and started doing things like this that made me happy, like running a podcast and meeting cool people that had nothing to do with making money, I realized that there is my thing that people thought of me as like Ronan, he's that realtor, you know, the guy who runs a brokerage. That was what my identity was, and had nothing to do with my real identity. And I still don't know what that is. But the things that make me happy are human connection, for sure.
It's special.
Yeah, especially like with my family. But
for sure,
I am the kind of guy.
You have a great family, by the way.
I do.
I love your family.
I'm very, very, very fortunate. I'm the kind of guy that, like, if I'm with the Tim Hortons drive-through, you know, I'll pay for the person behind me.
Okay.
And it is a selfish act because I derive so much pleasure from that.
Have you seen that skit? Have you seen that? Do you know I Think You Should Leave? Have you seen that show?
No.
It's a comedy sketch show, and there's a skit I want to show you after.
All right.
It's exactly that, but he does, and he expects it to be reciprocated all the way around. So he drives all the way back.
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
And does it?
Well, he goes into the mic. He's like, I want to order 50 burgers, 50 milkshakes, 50 fries, 80 nuggets. And then the woman, it's crazy. Because the woman, like, he paid for the woman's order behind him. Anyway, so he tries to get her to pay for like this insane.
I want to see this. I didn't mean it like that. I
know, yeah, but you said it's selfish. It made me think of that.
It is. Like, I think of doing a lot of things for other people that make you happy are self-fulfilling. You do it because you get pleasure from it. There could be worse things.
There could be worse things.
Selfish doesn't have to mean a bad thing.
That's a good point. You know, actually,
it doesn't
selfish does not have to be a negative term.
You want to have a really good marriage? Be super secure in yourself. Your personal peace, and this is the order. Your personal love for yourself will translate to a better love with your marriage, and your personal love with your spouse, your partner, whoever it is that you decide to marry, are more important than the relationship you have with your kids. Because if you have a poor relationship with your partner, the rest of the stuff doesn't translate well.
It's like a tumble. It's like pulling the Jenga piece from the bottom.
And you have to be able to. And they all require a lot of work. And if you are healthy and striving towards accomplishing financial means, you know, other means, spiritual means, whatever, you know, wakes you up in the morning, and that is the purpose of life. It's like a struggle for progress, you know, and it's a pretty cool place to be, right? Who is the type of guest that you want to have on mushroom flamingo pie?
On MFP, I've already given it. I'm already giving it abbreviations because sometimes mushroom flamingo pie, that's 6 syllables.
Will you get drunk on it? Will you drink alcohol?
Yeah, maybe. The thing is, I'm honestly not a big fan of just using shit like this as an occasion to drink because, for example, like if I were to go on stage, I wouldn't drink before because I don't want that to become my dependency to let loose. I just want to be myself. And I know that I could have a lot of fun when I drink. So maybe on a podcast setting, it's a bit different. I think of just in terms of like as a performance, because I do love performing. I don't know if I would ever actually let myself. Maybe I would do some mushrooms before. I'm very into.
I've never done mushrooms. I'm scared of them.
Really? That's
terrified.
That could be a whole different episode.
I'm terrified.
That's partially why it's in the name, because I do really, I respect my relationship with mushrooms in a crazy way.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. I love it.
You know, your parents are listening to this.
They know.
Really?
They're very aware, yeah.
Wow.
I think
how'd you stumble upon that?
They're so cool. Well, first of all, my ideal guest on my podcast is Joe Pavelski. I've always said I need to have a beer with that guy. And I think like the next level above that is having him on my fucking podcast. And he has his own podcast actually.
Does he?
I think they do. Yeah. He has his own company. He's done very well. I'm pretty sure as
All right,
a business.
put that in the universe. Ask him to please be on.
I will. One day it's going to happen. I'm manifesting it.
Yeah. So
Which works.
So you're putting out an invite for Joe Pavelski to be on Flamingo Mushroom Pie.
It's mushroom flamingo pie. But you know what? The words are interchangeable.
Yeah. No, dude.
It's totally fine. Everything's fine.
All right.
That's one of the lessons, I guess, honestly, that I've learned from. I don't even call it. I wouldn't. I know it sounds crazy. I would not call it a drug. It is a drug because it alters your state of mind.
All right.
But I think if you do it well, I would call it more.
Do it well.
Do it well. Do it right. Do it with the right people, the right setting, the right environment. It is more. And I've given this pitch a lot, so that's why it sounds very natural. But it's more of a therapy. You're
into psychedelics.
I'm into psychedelics.
Is mushroom the only one you've dabbled in? Because there's this whole rabbit hole you can go into that stuff.
Well, it's a rabbit hole. I've tried other psychedelics. I've tried acid. It was okay. It lasts too long. It's similar, but it's not the same thing. Like it's not the same experience. Acid you take because you actually want to have a complete psychedelic experience.
Did you?
Yeah, kind of.
Do you remember it?
Yeah.
Was it pleasurable?
It was pleasurable, but it was not pleasurable towards the end because it lasted too long. I just wanted to be sober again. In terms of acid.
How long did it last?
Oh my God, it lasted a long time. I took it at 6 p.m. It probably lasted until I couldn't sleep. So it was like 4 a.m. while I was trying to sleep. You have to take it very early in the day because it's an entire experience. It's a day.
And you're tripping the entire time?
I wouldn't say you're true. Like it depends how much you take and what, like where you are, what your environment, who you're with. I think.
And you don't smoke weed?
No, I don't smoke weed.
You went right, like there's no gateway.
I used to smoke weed. Weed is just, well, that's part of my thing when I talk about mushrooms is because weed is such a different a lot of people, because weed is the common drug, especially in Canada, now that it's all legal and everyone smokes weed, everyone likes to compare what they haven't done in terms of mind altering states to something that they know. So like, for example, if I'm telling my friend, like, trust me, like, you know, like, let's do like, whatever. I'd be more passionate about it or more honest when describing what it's like to do mushrooms. And then they would be like, yeah, but like, you know, I don't even like weed. And I'm like, yeah, like neither do I. Because weed is it's just different. It's not this, people compare it to weed because that's all they sort of know in terms of drug. I put quotation marks because I don't know. It's obviously a drug. It's just the way that I consider drugs as like, oh fuck, like don't do drugs, kids. Cause that's how I was raised, you know?
Right.
Don't do drugs, kids. Drugs are bad.
They are bad until you can look. I think the biggest to me, I am way more scared of alcohol than I am almost from any drugs, excluding like crack and heroin and stuff like that. Everything in my life that I have done and I regret started and finished with alcohol.
Isn't that crazy?
It's a socially acceptable drug.
It's so fucked up.
And
I totally agree. Not that I don't like it.
I self-medicated for so many years as a young person. Absolute abuse, and carried that into my adulthood with more sophisticated alcohol because I thought that was just an upgrade. And I could tell you that I'm terrified of it because it's so socially acceptable, and the stupid shit you can do drunk is like epic.
It's insane, which is why I said in terms of performing, I never want to get to the point where I'm fine. Like once or twice, maybe I'll have a beer, you know, before I do a stage performance or something. But I never want to I don't even know if I will, honestly, because I don't want to indulge in it. I don't want to even give myself that, oh my God, that was so good because I was, you know, a little tipsy from that, because that's dangerous.
I want to try something with you that I think might work with you. And I don't want to put you on the spot if it doesn't.
Okay.
I've said this on the podcast and I've said this before, that I would go back and tell my 20-year-old self, you know, X, Y, and Z. Now you're 21-year-old. What would you tell your 42-year-old self if you had to look forward and tell that guy?
My God.
Because it's a mind shift. It's totally different.
That is insane.
Than the other way around. And I know, like, it's easier for me to think because of my age, and I definitely don't want to prime your thought, but I think I'd like to try it with you. And if you can't elaborate it, you know, it doesn't come organically or authentically, don't do it. I'm not trying to make you look stupid or anything like that. I really think that you're a bright kid.
Thank you.
Like, what would you tell?
So, well, the first thing I'd say is I think it sounds or it feels easier to talk back to yourself because I think everything is relatively obvious in hindsight. I think in hindsight, everything's like, oh, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I hear that from my grandfather a lot. Oh, I wish I bought this stock at this time, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very common thing. I don't think it's regret. I just think it's driven by a little bit of regret, but I think it's just mostly like, you're like, oh, fuck. Like in hindsight, I should have done this. So it seems obvious, but at the time, like it's not obvious. Like, what should I do today? What should I do tomorrow?
Because you have to take the snapshot at that time.
It is not
you talk about
obvious.
your grandfather and stock. I've had stories like that too, but I'm like, the money I invested or did whatever, I needed at the time to do X.
Right.
At that snapshot in time. But
Right.
ceteris paribus, I don't know if you took any economics. What would you tell a 42-year-old?
42-year-old
Pepe.
Peps. 42-year-old Peps, if you're re-listening to this, first of all, I hope everything is safe and you're healthy and you've maintained good relationships with your family and your friends to the best extent that you can, because I think that sometimes we overpressure ourselves with relationships. I mean, it's very important to devote our resources to our relationships, but I think sometimes it's just another easy way to get in your own head with things. Oh, I need to text this person, text this. Just, at least that's how I think. I would tell you that as of now, I'm feeling very good. And I hope that the way that I'm feeling right now in terms of where my life is headed, which is still such an unknown. It's such an unknown. But I would tell you that I hope that you still feel that same drive within you to just keep achieving and reaching new heights, meeting new people, thriving for human connection at that age. And I don't know what's going to come with time. I don't know if it's going to bring me, I don't know if I'm going to wake up one day and be like, wow, like now I'm really comfortable for some reason. Like my dad tells me, don't get caught. He's going to be happy that I say that. He always tells me, he goes, don't get caught observing the problem, or don't get caught being comfortable, just like staring at the problem, do something about it. So I hope that I still have that drive in me to do something about whatever that may be in 21 years. I don't know what it's going to be. I have no fucking clue. I don't know what it's going to be in 30 days. I don't know what it's going to be in 21 years. But I just hope there's something. I hope there's something to work towards and to use as motivation to leverage human connections, relationships, and overall emotional stability. I prioritize emotional stability and health way more than I prioritize financial stability. Once again, probably partially because I am fortunate in the way I was raised, in the way that I live. But emotional stability for me and my relationships with people and whatever and whatnot is so much more important to me than money right now.
All right.
Where I am.
I'm going to leave this off as 42-year-old Pepe. I want you to know that what you thought you'd accomplish by 42, you'll do by 30. And at 42, you have to stay humble.
Okay.
And I'm, I think you're a mensch. And just leave it at that. All
What's
right.
the definition of that real quick?
A mensch is somebody who you can shake their hand and believe that once they made you a promise that they're going to keep it.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I think that like you have a lot of self-respect and honor. I think most people are studio gangsters nowadays because they don't have to confront anyone. They can say a lot of stuff vis-a-vis social media, and then they can hide behind it, nasty comments. I don't know how much of it is bots and how much is just angry people that are just in their sweatpants in their mom's basement, just spewing venoms because they hate their own life.
Yeah.
But that's not the people that I choose to as a measuring stick for like what what life is really about. I hate being philosophical about it, but I'm really happy to have met you, and talk to you on that level. I'm glad that I didn't prime the conversation with you. I could see why you're going to be successful now, and I could see why my nephews love having you as a buddy around.
Thank you.
And I'm personally curious to see, like where you're gonna net out.
Me too.
Yeah, you're gonna do some pretty super cool things, man.
Wow,
So
thank you.
I appreciate you being on Can't Shovel Hurricanes. I can't wait to be on your pie show.
Pie show, the podcast.
Yeah, your podcast. Your podcast. I think it'll be a lot of fun, but I don't want to be your first guest. I want to be your 100th guest.
Okay.
All right, buddy.
I'll jot that down. It'll be you and then Joe.
No, me first. I don't want to go. Joe's shoes will be too big to fill.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah.
All right, man. Have a good one. Thanks for being on.
Of course. Anytime. Thank you.